The hydraulics on this Massey Ferguson tractor behind me do not work at all. If that's the case on your tractor, then watch this video. I'll show you every step to repair the hydraulics on your tractor. Let's troubleshoot the hydraulic system on the tractor before we get started. The first thing I like to do when I troubleshoot is to take off this cover. This is where remote hydraulics would be on your tractor if it was equipped with remote hydraulics. You can pull that off and there's a tube that's connected to it. Sometimes a tube will come with the cover, and if that happens to you, that's okay. Just take the tube back off of the cover and set it back down into the pump. When you put it down in there, there's an O-ring on both ends, and you have to get the tube all the way down into the pump, and when you push it down, you'll kind of hear that and know that it's into the pump. With the tube in and the cover off, then you can roll the tractor over, and when you do so, oil should come out of the top. If oil comes out, you know that your pump is working properly. That's a good sign. If oil does not come out, like what is the case on my tractor, that would mean that there is a problem with the pump, or the lever, or something down in the bottom end of the hydraulic system. So I'll show you how to fix that. If oil comes out, then you know that your problem's within the top lid, either the piston or the cylinder, and if that's the case, I'll show you how to fix that too. If you do that test and you know that your problem's in the bottom, then you can take this cover off of the side of the engine here, and this is the side with the dipstick in it. All those bolts on there you can take off, and then you'll be able to see the hydraulic pump that's inside of here. Now, a really common problem with Massey Ferguson hydraulics is with this lever and this roller. I can already see from my outside cover here that the levers are on either side of the roller. That is incorrect. If I put my tractor back together the way that I found it, I would make the same mistake that the prior person made. Both of these levers should be in front of the roller. Sometimes those levers are broken off, sometimes the roller is broken off, but that's really common. I also know that my pump is not working, so I'll show you how to rebuild that in this video. So the next step, once I've done the troubleshooting, is to take the top lid off of the tractor. You can remove all of the bolts around the perimeter here. Don't take off the center 4, as those hold the piston. When you lift that off, the lever here is fragile and the tube is fragile, so before you take the top lid off the tractor, you can just pull that tube out so that you don't damage it while you're taking the top lid off. I'm working on a Massey Ferguson 35 today, but these techniques do apply if you're working on a Massey Ferguson 50. It'll be identical. And some of the techniques do apply to a Massey Ferguson 135. There's some differences, like an oil filter on a 135, but you should be able to follow along and follow these steps if you're working on any of those tractors. When you lift your top lid off, use a cherry picker so that you can lift slowly. Use your other hand to guide it. You don't want to damage the levers that are down here or the roller that's still in the body of the tractor. With the oil drained, I'm now going to remove the input shaft. You do so by taking this cotter pin out of the shaft. You'll have to bend it over on the one end and then wiggle it out like so. With the tractor in low range, you can push this all the way forward, then it'll come out. The next step in taking the pump out of your tractor is removing the PTO shaft. It's really a challenge, but stick with it, you can do it. The first thing you'll have to remove is this cover. You can see that there's just 3 bolts and the cover will come off. The cover holds this piece in. There's a O-ring around there which you'll pull out. The O-ring is around this groove. And then you pry this cover off and then the shaft will come. It is really difficult to get all those parts off. You'll need to use several screwdrivers and pry bars, chisels to get those parts off, but you can do it. Once you have these parts off, then the PTO shaft just simply pulls out. I'm taking both of the bolts out of the bottom of my housing here. This has a clip that drives and holds the pin in, and there's a clip on either side. It's stuck in there. I'm going to get a screwdriver behind it and see if I can pry that out at all. And I think I left my hammer on the other side when I was prying the other one off here. Get behind it. Here we go. Okay, that's going to pull out like so. Once you have that loose on both sides, then you can lift the hydraulic pump out. My hydraulic pump is in pieces, but we can pull it out and you pull on that shaft, wiggle it out. You got to get in between all the components there. It's kind of hard, but you can do it. I'm ready to lift this pump out of the tractor. There is that coupling in the back that you'll have to pull forward, maybe just like 1/4 of an inch, and then your pump can wiggle its way out. I have lots of broken pieces down here in the bottom. Not what I like to see. I probably have 4 or 5 pieces down in there. They're broken off of the pump. I have my pump out and it's on the bench here. I'm going to start disassembling it. There are 2 bolts that come out of the top here. I thought I had that one ready to come out, but I don't. There we go. And then this piece will just come off like so. I'm going to flip this pump around to the other side and take out the 4 bolts that are around down here. I'll show you what bolts I'm looking at. These 2 and these 2 are going to be the next ones that come off. Here we go. Here's my last one, and that's going to come off. I'm just going to use a rubber hammer here because I don't want to damage the face of the pump at all. Let me flip that around and try to get a better whack on it. I have my top piece off. Next I'm going to pull the plungers out. This one will just pull out easily like so. This one is broken off. I tried to pull on it with a magnet and the magnet isn't strong enough to pull it out. So I'm going to have to pull that out somehow. Hopefully yours isn't broken. It'll come out easily for you. There's a small cotter key here which you can pull out and then the pin will release. You can see that my shaft is good, which pleases me that that wasn't broken. There was so much water in the housing of this tractor that I was concerned it would have been frozen and cracked in a Michigan winter, and that has not proven to be the case yet, and hopefully it remains like that. My pin's out, and then that is freed up from the rest of the body of the pump. Next, I'm going to take the bolts out down here. I'm taking out the 4 bolts for my hydraulic valve control here. And then this assembly will come off. There is 1 bolt at the top that holds that on there. I'm going to take that one off next. I'm going to change sockets here. My hands are so oily from being on this pump that it's hard to take these off easily. Change that on there. Here we go. Pop this one off like so, and then the assembly will just come right off. Oops, we got 1 more bolt on the end here, and I'll take that one off, and then the assembly will come off completely. Come off like so. Next, you can take your relief valve off of the side, just like that. When you are ready to make this repair on your own tractor, you're going to need to purchase some parts. You have some different options as far as repairing your pump, and I want you to be informed so that you can purchase only the parts that you need. So follow along through these parts and then you'll be able to decide what parts you need. First, you can purchase gaskets. Of course, you're obviously going to need those. This is for the side cover and this is for the top lid. Definitely have to replace those if you take those parts off. Here you can purchase the blocks individually and separately. You can purchase the chambers individually. When you purchase a new chamber, it comes with both valves already installed, so that's really nice. Another option would be to purchase a whole entire kit, which is shown here. That contains both of your blocks, both of your chambers, your cams, the O-rings, and the gaskets. So if you are going to do a complete repair to your pump, purchase this kit because it has all the parts that you need. Another option though would be if you only want to put the new valves inside your chamber. That would save you a little bit of money if your chambers are indeed okay. I'm going to show you how to put this valve repair kit in case that's an option that you want to go with. These parts all have to do with the PTO. You can purchase a new O-ring, a new bearing, and a new seal. Here is a brand new relief valve, a brand new oil control valve. You could replace either of those. This is a brand new follower. This clip on the side might need to be replaced. If you broke yours off when you were trying to get your pump out, you'll definitely need to buy a new one. Or you can reuse them if you don't break them. Here is your retainer nut, and then we also have the rocker link. If either of these are broken on your tractor, just go ahead and replace them so that you don't have issue with those. For your top lid, you can purchase a new cylinder as well as a new piston. Want to replace those if it's grooved at all or damaged. You got new rings for your piston here. This top cover would only be used if your tractor is not equipped with remote hydraulics, but it's that available replacement part for you. Back here is a brand new hydraulic pump. So if you watch this video and you say, thanks for showing me how to do that, Rachel, but either my pump is not repairable or I think that's more than I can handle, then you can purchase a brand new hydraulic pump. This pump is nice, it's ready to just go into the tractor, it's got the filter on it, it's got the relief valve on it, it is ready to go. This obviously is going to be a more expensive option since you're paying for that luxury of having it already done versus doing the labor of the repair yourself. However, there are definitely times when a pump is easier and it might be the only option that you have if certain parts of your pump are damaged once you get it out of the tractor. So these are the parts that you can purchase. When you're ready to purchase them, please buy them from my site. It's farmtractorrepair.com. Your purchase on my site helps to fund future tractor tutorials. While you're on the site, also look around because there's lots of Massey Ferguson licensed products on the site in addition to the parts. Early style pump that I've been working on all along is non-repairable. There was too many pieces broken off once we took that out of the tractor, so it's not something that's going to be feasible for us to put back together. So I went to a salvage yard and purchased a new salvage pump that's the newer updated style, and now from here on out I'm going to show you how to rebuild that updated style. However, if you have the old style pump and your chambers look like this, you can still replace your valves in the same manner that I'm going to replace the valves on these new chambers. The valve themselves, the replacement part, is the exact same for the new or the old style pump. The chambers come off of a new style pump and I have my chamber off. There's a snap ring on top which I have removed, and now your valve will come out of the chamber. This access hole on the side allows you to move that spring and take that valve out. I'll just wiggle that out, it's coming. Bear with me here, there we go. So we got two pieces here, and then inside of here there's another piece which I'm going to take out with this pair of pliers. You can see that this it just moves really slow. It doesn't operate as freely as the new ones do. Definitely worn out. You can even see the rust that's on there. It's pretty gummed up. So I'm going to spray this with some carb cleaner here and clean this up, and then I'll show you how to put the new valves in. You will reuse this top part of your valve, so you can take your old O-ring off and replace it with a new one. In your kit, you do get this nylon backer, which is an update. It's not shown in the manuals, it's just a new upgrade available now, and I like to use it, and I would recommend that you do the same. So you can just slide that backer on first, and then your new O-ring will stretch over the top, and then this part will be ready to go back into your chamber. Let's get our new valve assembly here. Just drops down in now that that's cleaned up. We'll reuse that one spring that went with the top. So I got my O-rings on there, and we're ready to drop that down into place. Just going to use a ball peen hammer here to drive that in. I'm looking for the groove, and I want to make sure that I pound it past that groove so that the snap ring can slide in there. So let me pick this up, and then I'll get the snap ring into place. Make sure that when you do this, you hear that snap ring snap and get that in there all the way. My snap ring is completely in the groove. That's ready to go. If you want to rebuild your chambers by putting new valves in, you could do this on all 4 of your valves with your replacement parts. Your cams and blocks will just pull right off of your shaft like so, and then you can replace the new ones. I want to show you on the end of mine, I can see how they're grooved. That would hinder the pump from getting enough pressure and would definitely be a reason why this pump was at the salvage yard and not being used anymore. Okay, so now we have our new shaft here ready to go. The follower is going to go on here in the middle. It's going to roll away. Notice on your cams here how this one has that circle, which is the groove for the follower, and this one is smooth. I'm going to put this one with the circle on this side. These just slide on like that. You just got to work with them and they'll fit on there easily. You got to go on straight so that they don't bind. Once those are on, you can slide your new blocks over top. One on this side and one on the other. At this point, you should replace your small O-rings that are in these covers. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 O-rings. So go ahead and pop the old ones out and then just replace them with the new ones. I have both of my chambers installed onto my blocks here. You'll need to do the same. Be careful when you do so because there are rings on the end that have to collapse in while you're sliding that chamber onto the blocks. I decided to use brand new chambers since my blocks were so worn. I knew that my chambers would be worn as well, and they just needed to be replaced altogether. So with my new chambers on, now I'm ready to put my two ends onto the pump. Now this is a difficult assembly just because there's so many pieces that have to match up here together. Let me slide this end on here first. Like that. I'm just going to let that rest here for now. Then my other end is going to come on. I got to work all these moving parts in here together. Notice that this is down at the bottom, and let me show you how that is configured. This is going to connect to the fowler eventually, so make sure that yours is in that same configuration, and then work together to get both of your halves on and then your 4 bolts through. I have the main components of my pump all assembled here together. This pump is a little difficult to put together, so stick with it. You might need an extra set of hands. I put the the chamber part on the edge of my table here, and then I dropped one end down, got that secured through the dowels, and then worked on the second half. You could use that similar tactic, just working together. Once you have both of your ends on, then you put your 4 bolts through and tighten those up. On the bottom, I have my follower here, which is still loose, and it hooks up here and connects. I got my pin from before that will slide through all of the components there, and then use a new cotter pin and bend that over to secure it. On this end, we have this coupling that goes on here. Notice that there's a hole in the coupling and a hole on the shaft. You line those up like that, and then drop this pin through there. Your new control valve has a 3-part washer like this. You only need one of the washers, so take the other 2 away and just use that one thin washer to put into your pump. On this end, you'll have a piece like this that slides in like so, and you can feel it kind of lock into place, and that's what needs to happen there. So I'm going to drop this in. I'll see it in the hole. I can see that it goes past and drives all the way in there. And then your other 2 pieces go on like so. At the top of the pump, you have one O-ring which you need to replace. Then you can put this cover on next, like so. Next we have this contraption here. So I'm going to put this plate on here. This drops down into that up and down control valve that we just put in there, and then the hole drops through that rod like that. We have a special nut that goes on here. Screw that down until there's about a 1/4 inch of threads showing at the top, and that'll be a good adjustment for that piece. We'll leave it right there. Next we have this piece. This one slides through that bottom bracket and then through there, and then this bolt goes at the bottom. I'm going to get that one started. I do have that washer behind it. And then the last step will be the 4 bolts here to hold that plate down. This spring will slide into the pump on the other side. The tension gets pretty tight here. Once I have that all the way in, I'm going to use, I'm going to use this little backer plate that snaps in there, and then it's covered by a snap ring. Getting my plate in there, drive that in like that. I've got it held with my finger, and the snap ring goes on last. I'm taking my old relief valve out. I would recommend doing the same and replacing it. While a relief valve isn't the most common problem on a hydraulic pump, sometimes they do go bad, and I've been through a lot of work on this pump. I don't want to risk having that be problematic for me. I did put a new O-ring at the bottom of my relief valve. The O-ring came from the O-ring kit with the new chambers and everything in it. So I'll tighten this up all the way before I put it in the tractor, and then I'm going to take a little bit of grease and put it in the end here. There's a needle bearing there, and it's just good to have that greased up before you insert your pump into the tractor. I'm ready to put my drive shaft for the ring and pinion in. This is tricky because you have to line up these gears just like that, and that'll set in. Remember, your transmission does have to be in low range for that to happen. And then this slides over the top like that. You can turn that and then use this pin to go all the way through like so. To secure the hydraulic pump into your tractor, you need to put both of these tabs in. You'll need a gasket to go behind them. Those are available at our website. And then you can tighten up both of your nuts here. You can just use a 1/2-inch wrench. My collar here for the PTO, the seal is inside. I'm going to press this down. I have a socket there that's the correct size. Then I'll just press it all the way out the bottom. And I have a brand new seal in that will go in the same fashion. I have a socket in the middle there. It's the right size. Let me pick that up and show it to you. Right there. There's the old seal. Now we're ready for a new one. My new seal is in. Notice that it is directional. The smooth side goes towards where the oil is going to be. I drove that down all the way until it reaches that lip in there, and now that will be a really good seal when we put it onto the tractor. This is the PTO shaft. I'm going to take this bearing off. There is a snap ring that goes around here that I've already pried off. I used a screwdriver to get underneath there and pry it off the whole entire way. It's a thick snap ring, so it's kind of hard to do, but stick with it. Then when the snap ring's off, your shaft can drop down and your bearing will come off. So I've got it set up here in the press, and I'm going to drive it all the way down. And here's the old bearing. We'll put the new one on in a similar way. I'm ready to put my PTO shaft into the tractor. Notice I do have just a tiny bit of grease on the end of my shaft. There's a needle bearing in the end here, and I just want that to slide in there nicely. I'm trying to drive this in straight, and then I'll wiggle it around until it drops in, just like that. With my shaft in, now I'm ready to put this collar on. First, I have a brand new O-ring that will just slide over top, like so. And then I'm ready to slide this on. Notice that it does have these two flat sides which are on the right and left sides. And I'll set that in there like so. And then I'll just use this rubber hammer to tap that in there. Trying to tap evenly so that it doesn't get cockeyed as I drive that in there. We showed you how to put this PTO shaft in using a press, but if you do not have a press, you could use 2 pieces of wood in the socket and drive that out of there. I'm tightening up all of these bolts that are around this ring here. Remember that ring is directional, so you'll have to spin it around. I like to use the bolts to get it started and to pull that ring into the tractor, and then tighten a little bit on each bolt each time until that's all set and back together. At this time, it's important to check and make sure that your PTO is connected properly. I have my PTO in ground PTO position. When I turn the shaft, you can see that everything is moving, including my wheel. Then when I switch it to neutral PTO, only the PTO shaft moves. And then when I'm in the engine PTO position, it doesn't move because the tractor would have to be started up and the engine would move the PTO. Make sure that yours operates like that before you proceed any farther. On the top lid, we're going to take the cylinder and piston off so that we can replace it. In order to do so, you need to make both of these tighter, pull these springs in so that you can get a socket onto this bolt that's right here. And then you can take that bolt out. Oops, doesn't feel like I'm on it all the way. There we go. Got that bolt out, and then this one. And then on the flip side of the top lid, you'll see 4 bolts which hold the actual cylinder on. So take those 4 bolts out of the other side, and then your cylinder will come off with the piston inside. In some circumstances, you will be able to reuse your cylinder and your piston depending on the condition. You can put some air pressure in this hole on the bottom of your piston, and it'll drive the piston out of the cylinder. When you do that, your piston could really go flying across the shop, so be really careful about what direction you're pointing that piston in. However, mine has water in the system and it rusted the piston into the cylinder. When I put air pressure in there, the piston does not move at all. So therefore, I need to install both a new cylinder as well as a new piston. In addition to that, also my cylinder is grooved, and if yours is grooved, you'll need to replace it as well. Sometimes people will try to hone it, and if it's not horrible, you could probably get away with that, but if it's significantly grooved, you do need to purchase a new cylinder for your piston. The new piston comes, and you do have to put the rings on yourself. There is a dot on the piston rings as usual, and that dot goes up towards the top. You can put your 3 piston rings around there, and they just rest inside the groove just like that. And then your piston is ready to come into your cylinder. You can use a compression sleeve like this one, tighten it up, and then it'll go all the way in for you. Just set that in there. Okay. Take it off. Go. I have my surface clean, my old O-ring is removed. I'm going to pop a new O-ring in the center. There's no gasket, just the O-ring underneath this cylinder. You can see that I used a tool like this one to remove the studs from the old cylinder and reuse them on my new cylinder here. You can see that they're all installed. So now I'm ready to drop this down just like that. Wiggle it on there just so. There we go. And that slides in there, and I'm going to turn this the appropriate way, drive my bar through here, and that'll be held into place, and I'll tighten up all of my bolts. It's time to make an adjustment to the up and down on your top lid. You make this adjustment when this lever is pointed right at the arrow between the 2 dots, which you'll see casted in there, and then this one should be at fast. When those are in position, you can come up here to these levers. You want to loosen up this eccentric here just enough so that you can move your levers as you want to. Make sure that both of these levers are together. They're parallel and matched like mine are. And then you want just about an 1/8 inch of spring play as I have shown here. If your levers are out of adjustment, you move the 2 nuts that are on the end of here either forward and back to change that spring there if you need your lever to go forward or back. Once you have that adjustment made, you can tighten up this nut at the bottom. You want this washer that is behind here to touch this part. Now it's tricky because when you tighten it up, it kind of pulls and it could push your bottom piece here. You don't want to push it, you just want it tight enough while it touches. See, when I do that, it pushes. So let me push that back and tighten that up just like that. Okay, my nut's tight. My washer is just touching, not pushing, and both of my levers are in sync here. So now we're ready to drop this top lid onto the tractor. Notice that I have my surface cleaned up here, and the surface is cleaned up on the tractor as well, so we're ready to put a new gasket into place. I'm going to use the cherry picker and drop it onto the tractor. When I drop it on, I got to make sure that both of these are on the correct end of the roller, which we'll show you, but I want to mention that while it's out of the tractor and you can see a little bit better, not separate, together when they go onto the tractor. Ready to drop my top lid down. I've got it hooked up to the cherry picker here. Go ahead. Notice that I do have my tube in place here with new O-rings on it. All the oil for the system flows through that tube, and sometimes they'll get cracked or broken if it freezes in the Michigan winter or another cold weather winter. So you gotta be careful, and then also it's really fragile. So as this drops down, I don't want to crush it. Okay, keep coming. Oops, caught, okay. A little more. Okay, stop there and just look at my lever. Okay, come on down. I'm afraid to stick my finger in the middle. Okay, the tube's lined up, and then keep going. I'm making sure that my lever is in place. There, that looks good to me. Notice here that I have my levers in front of the roller. If you need to make an adjustment, you can move that roller back ever so gently to make sure that your levers are where they're supposed to be. I'll go ahead and put all the bolts around the perimeter of my top lid next. In this lid, there's an O-ring which you'll want to pick out and replace. This O-ring has a lot of pressure on it because the oil flows through here as well, so it's really important that you replace that one. With that replaced, you're ready to drop it onto the tractor. This is directional and it can go on the wrong way. And if you do that, the system won't work properly and it'll be really hard to troubleshoot why it isn't working. So make sure you put it on the same direction that I have mine here. I'll tighten up both of those bolts here, and then I'll put the cover on the side down below with a new gasket. It's time to add oil to our tractor. I'm using a 90 weight oil. This is actually specifically made for Ford tractors 1939 to 1952 is what it says on the back, but it's very appropriate for this Massey Ferguson tractor as well. The entire system takes 7 gallons, so you can pour that in right here by the gear shifter. Ready to start the tractor up and see how the hydraulics have improved. It's in neutral, so it's safe for me to start it standing next to it right here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and lift the arms up. You can see that they come all the way up, which is good. And then I'll lower them. I'm going to come around here and put some weight on it to help the arms go down. All of the parts are new. We got new cylinder, new parts in the pump, new piston. It's all got to get the oil worked through the system. So if your arms aren't working right off the bat, just give it a little bit of time so that oil can get all the way through the system and be ready to go. Got the arms going down there. That looks good. I'm happy with this repair. I hope that this tutorial is helpful to you. When you are ready to make this repair on your own tractor, please purchase the parts at farmtractorrepair.com. Your purchase on that site helps to fund future tractor tutorials. While you're on the site, you might want to also consider purchasing a manual. Not only will that give you some extra hints on the hydraulic system, it'll also help you as you service your whole entire tractor for the lifetime that you own it. And on the site, we have a nice selection of licensed Massey Ferguson products, like some hats that you might like to look at as well. Go ahead and subscribe to our channel as we release new videos all the time.